Thanks to those joining me live and to those that'll be joining me on archive. DStyleBoxing here. Hit that notification button so you can notice every time a video uploads or when I'm live on the air. Also, thumbs up the video. Support the channel. And just as a reminder, 11:30 p.m. Eastern Time every Thursday. Set time frame for a live Q&A. So you can join me, ask me live questions, and I'll answer them. All right. I'll go ahead and do that for you. Also, if you're watching this on archive, leave a comment and tell me what you think. During the live Q&A, by the way, I will go over a lot of the comments that I get on archive, and I will address them on the live Q&A as well. Again, that's 11:30 p.m. Eastern Time on Thursdays. Mark it down on your calendar. Now let's go to talk about this Heather Hardy fight. All right. I haven't been following Heather Hardy's career or anything like that. So I don't want to come off as someone who is that's following her career, and I know a lot about her career or anything like that. That's not me. I've watched some of her fights, okay, but she's a world champion in boxing. That's what I do know about Heather Hardy, and I've seen some of her fights. I saw her first MMA fight, right, and it was apparent to me, even though she won that first fight, that she was not going to do very well in MMA, all right? And you saw why in this fight, okay? She just got obliterated, all right, in her second pro fight as an MMA fighter. A couple of mistakes here made by her management, a couple of mistakes, right? Number one, it's apparent to me that women's boxing is not really going anywhere. It's had years to grow, and it just won't grow. I mean, it just won't grow. And for whatever reason, women's boxing just is not appealing to even boxing fans at large, right? It just doesn't look appealing to people, right? People just don't watch it. Right? And that's not me being sexist. That's not me I'm just being honest. People just don't watch women's boxing. Even boxing fans don't watch it. Right? I'm not saying anyone in particular. I'm saying in general. Right? Now, this is why, women like Heather Hardy moved to MMA. This is why Holly Holm went to MMA. Okay? This is why, just in general, you're going to see a lot of women boxers go to MMA. All right, it's happening. Why? Because they actually get put on TV over there. Why? Because they have an opportunity to make more money. That's why. Right? Athletes will go where the money takes them. So the first observation is the obvious. Heather Hardy had to do this, even though late in her life, take on this whole new sport of MMA, because even though she was a world champion in boxing, her pay scale wasn't going up. Her pay scale was not going up. Be honest. So when did you catch a Heather Hardy fight on any of all the cards that they put on TV? They never put on HBO, Showtime, PBC. She might have been in a PBC, but I don't remember. But nonetheless, this is a world champion. And because there's not a lot of money in it, because there's not a lot of interest in it, women's boxing is just not at the level of men's boxing. It's not. I'm talking skill level here. It's not. So what does that mean? That means when a female boxer transitions to another combat sport, right, she may not be as advanced with her hands, okay, against those girls than male boxers would be against male MMA fighters. All right, that's number one, and we're only talking about the hands here. Heather Hardy, and I noticed this with Holly Holm. I noticed this like a lot of female boxers are very predictable pattern fighters. Okay, it's of course I'm not going to generalize. I'm not going to say all of them, right? But they're very predictable. Heather Hardy is very predictable. Holly Holm till this day is very predictable, right? You kind of know they have like 2-3 set of combinations that they throw all the time, right? There's not a lot of situational intelligence there. I'm not saying they lack intelligence. I'm saying this is how they're trained to fight, right? Now, I couldn't sit down and explain to you why, because I don't know. My best guess is what I said earlier, right? Women's boxing just isn't that advanced, right? For the reasons I stated. Lack of popularity, lack of money, lack of interest, right? Not every female boxers like that. Katie Taters doesn't fight like that. But I've just noticed this a lot with Holly Holm. I've noticed it a lot with Heather Hardy, even in their boxing matches, right? How predictable their movements were. And they got away with it because the quality of opposition just isn't that great overall. It's not that great overall. Now, you can argue, of course, that women's MMA is trailing behind men's MMA, but it is growing quickly. That you can say, all right? It's growing very fast. Women's MMA is. And lastly, let me just say this. A lot of female kickboxers, all right, are just in many cases, right? A lot of female boxers started as kickboxers and then they transitioned to boxing, right? And that's mainly like in the U.S., like Holly Holm, for example, right? I believe Heather Hardy too. Although I haven't read into the story in quite a minute. Okay, but a lot of like European countries, like Eastern European countries, and places like Holland and like places like that, right? Women's and like places like Thailand and all right, women strikers are just they're taken a lot more serious, all right? And in some cases, and not most, are better strikers, right? They're just better strikers than female boxers from the West, all right? That's just the way it is, all right? I'm just saying. And yes, I'm talking about the hands specifically. Now, with that said, that was very apparent in this fight, okay? That was very apparent in her fight. Heather Hardy took a beating, right? She took a beating. Now, it's one thing to be a pattern fighter in boxing because you can get away with it, right? Especially because that's what you do, you know. And even if you get exposed and, you know, you have time, you have, you know, so many rounds where you can make an adjustment, you know. In this case, Heather Hardy didn't have time to make an adjustment, right? Just didn't have time to make that adjustment. Didn't have that time. Christina Williams, that was her name. I was trying to get her name here. Now, here's where management is fucked up, okay? Numero uno, they got Heather Hardy and they threw in there against an unknown, right? You could do research on her, and she has a amateur record, and I believe one boxing fight or one amateur boxing fight anyway. But that's about it. They didn't know anything about her. That's crazy. Williams had all these. She has a lot of film on Heather Hardy. She even talked about it. She was prepared for that overhand right. I saw an interview of hers. So I'm like, oh, there you go. And we see her execution. Yeah, she did. I mean, she had it down pat, right? She had it down pat. Heather Hardy did. Or Williams did, I'm sorry, on Heather Hardy. A couple of things. And with a lot of what I just said, right? And what can we learn from this? You know, because every time something like this happens, it's an opportunity to learn, okay? A lot of boxing fans, right? And this is coming from me. This is coming from someone who loves boxing, right? A lot of boxing fans seem to believe that MMA fighters are just a bunch of brutes and they don't know how to fight standing up. Now, sure, you do have some guys that are like Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu specialists, like a Damian Maia, and his stand-up is very subpar. Like, I get that, right? But some of these strikers are world-class strikers, right? I mean, that's just the reality. Heather Hardy's a boxing world champion, and even with everything I said, I mean, I'm breaking it down for you. Yes, women's MMA is behind. Women's boxing is not at the level of men's boxing. Okay, even with that. But women's MMA is not at the level of men's MMA either. It's catching up a lot faster, but it's not at that level either. But here's my point. Heather Hardy went in, and she was like a fish out of water. She had no answers for what Williams was doing. At distance, she couldn't deal with the kicks. She couldn't deal with the kicks from distance because legs are longer than arms, right? And at short distance, she didn't know what to do with the elbows that were landing. She didn't know what she was trying to use boxing techniques to fight on the outside. She was trying to use boxing techniques to close distance. It doesn't work that way in MMA. That's not going to work, right? So now you know why they're not bobbing and weaving on the way in, because they could get fucking kicked in the head or in the face, like in this case. All right? You know, I forgot who it was, but it was a YouTuber that was talking about, Andre Berto. If Andre Berto, all right, were to go to, if he just, all he has to do is work on his takedown defense, and if he could get that down pat, that's it. Andre Berto will win every fight, right? That's what I'm hearing. Well, actually, nah. Actually, no, that's not the case. Now, don't get me wrong. Yes, he's going to have to learn takedown defense. Okay, of course, right? If Andre Berto were to fight someone, okay, that's a wrestler or a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu practitioner, someone, you know, a judoka, okay, but mainly Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and wrestling are the two dominant grappling games in MMA, right? If, just all bullshit aside, yes, of course he has to learn takedown defense. That's just one thing that he has to do. That's it. Yeah, what's Andre Berto going to do when someone's kicking his fucking legs? Well, what's he going to do? Unless he knows how to check a kick, he's out of water too. All right? kicks are far more powerful than punches. All right? And just like Heather Hardy could find himself completely lost against a high-level striker, right? With elbows on the inside, they grab him on the back of the neck and throw knees in his face, right? Is he going to know what to do against Muay Thai techniques? Now, I don't follow Andre Berto around. I know he comes from a family that has a background in mixed martial arts or whatever, okay? But the reality, so I don't know how much he knows, all right? But just in general, you know, just this idea that you could just get a boxer and just throw him into the octagon, and as long as he learns takedown defense, it's a wrap. Nah, like it's not a wrap. All right? It's not a wrap. Like, no. Okay, it's not, and first of all, it's not that easy learning takedown defense. Right? It's not like the easiest thing to learn. It trains a lot of energy from you, and it also stifles your own striking. When you're constantly, you know, bracing for a takedown, that stifles your striking, right? So it's different. That's why the stances are different. That's why a lot of things are different. And Heather Hardy learned that the hard way, right? The hard way. Yeah, they took Heather Hardy and she beat up some other girl. I think she was making her debut too, or she had one fight or something like that, right? Beat her up. But that girl wasn't a specialist or really good at anything. She's just, you know, just someone who just practiced MMA at a gym, you know. This time she fought someone that knew how to strike, knew how to use elbows and kicks. And it was problematic for Heather Hardy. She did not know what to do. And how could we expect her to know what to do? How could you? You can't just expect somebody to know these things. But I bet you people got in her ear and told her, "Oh, don't worry about it. We're just gonna work on that takedown defense. And you'll take her out. Oh, she's not this girl you're fighting. She's not a wrestler. You're good. Don't worry about it." Okay, that's what happened. So there's always lessons to be learned. There's always lessons to be learned, honestly, right? Always and always. Anyway, yeah. First of all, Heather Hardy, man, she took that kick right in the. She's got a chin. I'll give Heather Hardy that. Okay, she can take a fucking hit. Because she was getting lit up. Okay, I don't even think she went down. All right, they stopped it. It was a doctor stoppage. Okay, her nose was completely busted up. Right. Now, credit to her, she did release a statement apologizing to her fans or whatever and saying that she'll be back, right? Heather Hardy, I don't know exactly how it went with her, but she needs to assemble a team, right? That or, well, it's kind of different in MMA, but she has to go to one of those major MMA gyms, right? And train with a lot of these high-class MMA fighters, so she could learn more, right? You know, I didn't even look into what Heather Hardy was training, but I think she honestly thought that her striking was going to be sufficient enough, okay, to win, right? Like it's just, that's not the way it works, right? That's just not the way it works. Striking in MMA and striking in boxing are two completely different worlds. The stance is different. The timing is different. The way you close distance is different. What's effective and not effective is different. There's way too many differences. Just way too many. And I don't know how many more of these examples people need before they realize, oh, shit. So you're telling me they're two different sports? Yeah, they're two different sports. All right? Yes, they're different. And by the way, just to be clear, it's not like, no offense to this Willem chicken. Who knows? She might be a future Bellator champion for all I know. I don't know. All right. But, like, to be honest, we really don't know how good she really is. Like, yeah, she looked impressive against Heather Hardy, but that can be a halo effect. Meaning, you put her in there against a top-level striker in MMA, she might get lit up the way Heather Hardy got lit up, right? So, in a way, right, I mean, this was a devastating loss, and it should not be a loss that boxing fans should overlook, right? Because when Holly Holm beat Ronda Rousey, boxing fans are quick to jump on here and do videos and see boxing. A boxer can go at MMA, and right? Well, you got to see that. First of all, if you cannot see that what Holly Holm is doing right now, if you don't see that that's impressive, I don't know what to tell you. Okay, Holly Holm is a two-sport champion, like literally. Right now, she's not a reigning champion right now, right? But just the fact that she got some wins in MMA and never got embarrassed like Heather Hardy got embarrassed, right? Like, yeah, Holly Holm lost decisions and she got choked out in the last round in a fight she was winning against Miesha Tate, right? It's all that's good, right? So I get that, and I get a lot of people like to criticize Holly, but you got to understand what she's doing is kind of impressive. She took on MMA in her 30s. It's not like Holly started doing MMA in her 20s or teens. All right, so just keep that in mind. Also, I never thought no offense to her boxing coach, but they just have the same repetitive fucking combinations, even in MMA, which is irritating. But you got to admit that what Holly Holm has been doing is impressive. It's very impressive, right? Now, it's going to be a while before any male could do it in both sports, in boxing and MMA, because, as I mentioned earlier, men's boxing and men's MMA are just leaps and bounds ahead of the women's versions of it. But there you go. All right. Heather Hardy got lit up. Okay. Heather Hardy, right? It's like her nose was in two different parts of her face. Okay. That was a devastating nose break. Okay. That was the chin bone hitting her right in the face. And the fact that she did not go down and she kept fighting really shows you her warrior spirit, right? I mean, it does show you that. Okay, that I cannot take away from her, but man, you have to wonder, like, if should she even go back to MMA? I don't know if it's a good idea, right? It's just not her sport. It's not, and she's in her 30s. It's way too late to start another sport. It's just way too late. But I'm sure she'll be back. If they match her against the right opponents, she can get some victories, and but I don't know. I don't think she'll ever be at a level to be a world champion. It's too late. Okay, it's just way too late. That's just my opinion, right? But Heather Hardy got lit up. Man, Heather Hardy got lit up so bad, right? Holy shit, she got lit up, right? Man. Now, did boxing take an L, right? No, not really. It's all about individuals and what individuals do, right? That's what I think. But just in general, it's a female boxer, As I said, women's boxing just isn't as advanced. All right, let me read this comment here by Badler. Women's MMA is not popular. It only gets views because the UFC forces it on its cards. If WMMA kept separate like women's boxing is, kept off big cards, it would be at about the same level. Well, that's a hypothetical. I mean, you're saying if the UFC kept it away. I don't know if that's true. Let me tell you why. Right? Ronda Rousey didn't become a big star. It didn't stem from the UFC. That actually happened in Strikeforce. And the same with Gina Carano. The same for Cyborg. You can literally argue that the biggest names in women's MMA were not created by the UFC, right? Cyborg, and I don't mean created like I'm talking like they're WWE wrestlers and shit, but I mean like their names didn't become big there. Holly actually came from boxing, Cyborg from Strikeforce, really, later Invicta. But it's just people kind of saw it in Strikeforce against Gina Carano. The same with even Misha Tate and Ronda Rousey. They became big names outside of the UFC, right? So this idea that people only watch it because they put it in the UFC isn't exactly true, because. And by the way, a lot of those cards, like Gina Carano versus Cyborg, got pretty good ratings. It did very good on TV, right? So I don't know if that's true, man. I don't know if that's true. It's not at the level of men's MMA, obviously, but a lot of men's MMA isn't doing all that good either right now. So it's doing pretty piss poor, So hey, okay. A lot of them do better numbers than Demetrius Johnson, right? So it is what it is. She was not a big star in Strikeforce. They started there, but they blew up in the UFC. Well, I believe they had Ronda Rousey on CBS for Strikeforce, and I believe it got some really, really good ratings. If you remember, she never had to fight to become UFC champion. Since she was Strikeforce champion, she just made her UFC champion right out of the gate. And she did good numbers on her first pay-per-view there. So all I'm saying is that the brand name started in Strikeforce. The UFC purchased Strikeforce and just moved her over to the UFC as they did with everything else. But in all reality, it's the biggest names in women's MMA were not brought up in the UFC. That's just a fact. Now, the UFC is the biggest MMA promotion in the world. So, of course, once they were already household names and they went to the UFC, of course, maybe she got more fans out of there. I think that's evident. But my point is still valid. My point's still valid. Man, Heather Hardy got lit up. God. Look at that. I'm looking at her bloody face right now. It's hard not to feel bad for her, I mean, it's kind of like she just got out of a car wreck. All right? It's like she just got out of a freaking car wreck. I mean, this is terrible. She looks confused, too, like, damn, nobody told me about this kick. If I would have known about this kick, damn, jeez, look at that kick. Damn. You guys should watch. I would play it here, but YouTube will get me, man. YouTube will get me if I would play it. The coach is in the chat. What's up, coach? Yeah, man. She got destroyed. She got destroyed. She got taken to school, right? For sure. I think she should, in my opinion, I just looked up her age, Heather Hardy, before I started this video. She needs to probably just stick to boxing. a couple more fights and call it a day. Because I even looked back at some of her other fights. There was some fights where she had a lot of her fights, man, she would get swollen up a lot, right? And I don't know. And after this beating, I don't want her to end up like stuttering or some shit later in her life. So I think she has to call it a day. You know, I think it's a little too late to develop her MMA skills at this point. It's a little too late. And she shouldn't look that old, too. I mean, I thought she would be like in her mid-20s, but nope. She's up there in age. So, like I saw this one fight, she had this, like her whole eye, man, like the whole side of her face was swollen. I'm just like, holy shit, now this. I mean, I think she kicked like the bridge of her nose like inside her, man. Like I never seen something like that. It's insane. But yeah. Anyways, guys. So shout out to Coach. There's a lot of great women's MMA coverage, boxing and men's MMA as well. But make sure you check them out. This is DStyleBoxing. It's late. I'm going to bed. Peace.